Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. Hello, podsters. This week, as The Lost City is out in cinemas, and of course that stars Sandra Bullock, so we'll be picking our favourite Sandra Bullock films. You might know already, but we have a Buy Me a Coffee account. We have had a few coffees been donated, which is really nice. Thank you very much for that. That's been amazing. Can't say thank you enough. Also, just a reminder, there's no subscription on our Buy Me a Coffee. That's not how it works. It's just a one-off donation. So it's not, you're not stuck with us paying lots of money to us. It's just a one-off thing. So if you want to show your appreciation, that would be amazing. Thank you very much. And of course, I am joined on this pod, as always, with the Mr. Encyclopedia Man. That is Mr. Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. And also a tremendous thank you to whoever finally got us a coffee. That was nice. I haven't had coffee in many years, so it's much appreciated.
Cool. I have one question for you, Boaz, today.
Mm-hmm.
Take your blindfold off. It's beautiful out there. Take it off. It's
Leave me alone, beautiful. You psycho.
The imagery.
It's not beautiful.
Amazing.
It's English weather. It's shit outside.
Yeah, it was. Not too bad for England, actually.
Yeah, well, it's not as bad as it was the other day.
All right.
Still a little grey, but
Should we go with my pick first then for Sandra Bullock films?
Yeah, well, it's better than Space.
Yeah. Yes, Gravity is certainly better than Space. Yeah, my pick for Sandra Bullock films is Gravity. Other films I was looking into was like Speed. I know that's probably more of a Keanu Reeves film, but I think Sandra Bullock's performance is really cool in that.
Yeah, I quite like Dennis Hopper in that movie. I was also thinking like Miss Congeniality, because I think that's like in my head because I watched it when I was much younger. Yeah, I decided not to pick that one.
The Heat looks... I've not seen The Heat. The Heat looks really cool, actually. The Blind Side, The Proposal.
What the hell was that? The Proposal. Never heard of the movie.
But Demolition Man was definitely in my thoughts. Yeah, yes, again, more of a Sly Stallone film.
Stallone, yeah.
But I think her performance is actually really funny in that. But ultimately, I went with Gravity because I remember seeing this in IMAX way back when. This film is nearly a decade old as well.
That's a lie.
My mind.
You are lying. Why are you lying?
No, I'm not.
I remember watching it in the cinema with you. That's bullshit.
Were you next to me? Oh, right.
Yeah, I think I was next to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But yeah, I mean, the fact that the CGI in this film is fucking amazing, it's just quite remarkable that this is nearly 10 years old.
Yeah, don't say that again. Don't ever say that again. I don't ever want to be reminded of that.
10 years old.
No.
10 years old.
No. No. I'll kill myself with a bird box. It's not possible.
So what happens in Gravity? Well, we are introduced to three astronauts in space. We go straight to space where there's no like launch sequence. We go straight into space. And we're introduced to George Clooney and Sandra Bullock's characters. And there's another astronaut, I forget his name now, but Dr. Stone, Sandra Bullock plays, she's working on this like medical equipment on the space shuttle Explorer, and it's not really going very well. There seems to be a lot of problems, and then all of a sudden from Houston there is a report of a missile strike that the Russians have taken down, I don't know, an old satellite, and there's debris coming and they have to abort. The debris soon takes out the Explorer pretty spectacularly. and Kowalski, played by George Clooney, and Ryan have to basically travel from the Explorer to the ISS. Unfortunately, we lose Kowalski along the way. Then Ryan basically has to go from the ISS using the Shinzu, a Russian pod, to the Chinese station and then go back to Earth. That's basically the plot. It's very, very, very simple stuff. Just a nice, quick 90 minutes for this film. But my God, what a 90 minutes this was. It's just, I really like this film a lot. What do you make of this one then, Bowers?
Yeah, I liked it. I haven't watched it in a while, but I do remember all of this, and just reminded of all it. It is pretty relentless, and I think it makes good use of its time. It does really strap you in for the ride, and it just keeps going and going, which is great. And always new problems, always edge of your seat. You do feel like she could die at any moment. And I agree. The special effects are still pretty incredible. Yeah. Well, I would say still 10 years. In terms of good special effects, it's not 10 years. Shut the hell up! Stop saying that. I say it. You don't say it. You shut up. You listen. But anyway, that time ago, it's not like that long ago. In special effect language, it does look really good, and the camera work as well is really awesome. I kind of forgot how innovative it's directed. You're like, man, this is because you've got the spectacle of space and this kind of high octane stuff, and debris and fire, and running out of oxygen and all that. But there are things that the camera does where you're like, man, that's incredible, and I think it makes it easier to do with an entire CGI environment apart from the actors. But
yeah. So directing then, I mean, my favorite shot is right from the off is the opening shot, which basically lasts 13 minutes, which is insane. It's just incredible where we start off with this amazing crescendo of sound with some of the title cards about how dangerous space is, and the volume level gets so loud it nearly physically hurts your ears. Then all of a sudden cut to the curvature of the Earth and we hear nothing. Then you can barely hear the radio dialogue. It slowly gets louder and louder, and you start to see this dot, in space. And eventually, after what seems like a long while, the space shuttle Explorer comes right into shot, and the camera seamlessly spins around all these three astronauts, with one doing a little jig, which was quite funny. And there's a great moment where George Clooney looks up at the Earth, and he's bottom left of frame. Then the camera drifts up and spins and comes back down, but he's now bottom right of frame. It's just brilliantly choreographed. You just lose all perspective of yourself as a viewer, in a good way, like you're an astronaut with them. Just love that. Certainly that opening section of that shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it was that was done really, really well. And I would have made a comment on that. I thought that was quite remarkable. As you said, just kind of this fluid motion of going up from where he is. Oh, it's a hell of a view. Going up to where he's looking, seeing the entire, well, not the entire, but all of the Earth's surface. He's looking at the continents and stuff, and then just coming down, and you're not even noticing that it's coming back down, and there's George Clooney again. That was done really well. I would say the whole part, even straight after that, where the action really starts and the debris coming, she gets essentially lost in space for a bit. I find that sequence just incredible. I really like that. That might be my favorite sequence. There are other sequences like that throughout, so it keeps doing that, and it keeps finding innovative ways of displaying destruction and fear and stuff. But just the way that's done, all the debris comes, destroys the ship she's on. She can't undo her harness. She goes spinning. And it's all one shot, it's just the camera's following her. Da, da, da. Then she gets launched. So it goes from following the spaceship, where it's a steady cam, to when she unzips herself, it's literally on her, stuck on her. So it's the camera is moving with her. And it's the environment that's moving now. So it went from the environment is stationary to she's moving to the environment is moving like hell. Now she's stationary. And I just love this this shot, which is kind of a transition, but it's not. It's kind of one of these sneaky, where it goes into, because usually you would go from third person and then cut to first person. I'm still blown away by the fact that the camera goes around her. It's this close to her, and then it goes around her and goes inside her helmet, and then you see the first person.
Oh yeah, that was so cool. Yeah.
To me, that always blows my mind, that scene. And then it comes back the other end of her head. I'm like, how the hell? Why isn't this like... I just think it's amazing. Like, every other film I've ever seen, you always cut from third to first person. You never just, get the camera to just literally enter their skull and then have first person.
Excuse me, camera coming.
I think that shot is incredible.
I'm going to be your face now.
yeah. I just think that shot is absolutely spectacular. But that whole sequence is just so amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And the camera just keeps doing stuff to add to the action. There's already a lot going on.
Yeah, because when you get to that moment that you're talking about, you think you can calm down now as a viewer. But no, there's like, as you said, another incredible long shot. But it's like completely different take on like the spinning sensation, because you just stay really close up on Sandra Bullock's face and you get like the spinning sensation all through lighting reflecting on her helmet, because it's just there. Then as you said, it just goes in her helmet and you see all the HUD design information there. But the sound design is all different from just of her breathing. It's more detailed sound of her breathing. And then as she goes around like the dark side of the earth and the camera lets go, kind of thing, all you literally see is the light from her helmet. That's literally it. It's just relentless, that opening.
Yeah, it really is. Definitely makes you feel the fear.
It's got really interesting like spinning decisions in this film.
Yeah.
Spinning direction, because when Sandra Bullock basically spins round, she's attached to the arm of the Explorer, spins all the way around, then the debris hits the arm, then she just spins around with the arm, and then the camera kind of like stays with her. But then when she releases from the tether, it's like the camera has released her as well. Like she just goes spinning out of control. I just thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, that decision there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think there's a lot that's done with the camera that really makes you feel the impact of things. When debris is hitting, or when she hits the wings of the other shuttle, they come crashing down.
Solar panels.
Again, it's like when she hits, it's like the camera's like, oh my god, like it's getting knocked about as well. It does really make you feel the impacts. When there are impacts, it's like the camera's like, oh my god, like it's being affected, even though, there isn't a cameraman, there isn't a camera there. I just like that sort of visceral feeling. It kind of does make it feel impactful. It does make you feel the hits, If the camera's feeling the hits, you're feeling the hits. I think that's an interesting way to do it, because you see some directors, they don't use the camera like that. Things happen to the character or things happen to the environment and you stay motionless. And it's like, I can understand what's going on, but I'm not really feeling it. And I like that, of just like hell is going and the camera's going through hell as well. And you kind of feel it more.
Yeah. There's lots of great POV shots in this film, but I think my favorite is when Ryan is like clinging on to the ISS and is trying to reach the dock. And when something breaks off and she's literally drifting again, you get the sense of panic when you watch it. You're like, oh my God, please grab on something now.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of the POV shots are just brilliantly done in this.
So I think they tried to make it as scientifically accurate as possible, which one thing means there's no sound in space. I think that could because a good thing is the score. I think the score is really kind of, it's like, and it's really like quite intense, quite scary. It is very, very Dark Knight-y, but a lot of things are. I like that when, say, for example, when she's out of the, she's trying to fly the shuttle and it's stuck on the parachute, and she gets out to like unbolt the parachute. And I love that whole shot, and then the sound is just incredible, where she's unscrewing it, and then the drill flies off, and the camera follows the drill. And then she reaches for the drill, and then it comes to her, this way. The camera's there. Oh, her arm's got the drill, and then it's like, boom! There's debris over there, just past her arm, and then that's when the music hits, and you're like, oh my god! And you feel it.
Well, the debris is coming,
And and I just love because he just wants to be scientifically accurate. There is no sound in space, so how do you do drama? How do you make it feel as if this space station is tearing up? Because I think as human beings, you're kind of conditioned. When there's destruction, there's explosions, there's noise. And I think the music substitutes for that. It's like stuff is flying off, it gets louder. More stuff's flying off, it gets louder. It just makes you feel it, I think.
Yeah.
Without kind of betraying the science of it.
Yeah, I do like that scene as well when Ryan is hanging on to the Sawyers. It's great because the camera is basically just stays in the same place pretty much while the pod is getting hurled around, and it's so intense. And I was literally wincing the whole time, whether debris was going to hit her or something. But what I like about it is that you can actually see some of the debris coming in the background as she's working on the pod. Zoom like past quickly, really quickly before Ryan even sees anything. You can really notice those zooms of debris. Yeah, and you're like, please look around now, please. And see it earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we've said, the CGI is so good and literally photorealistic at times. But what annoys me about what people describe this film is the fact that they call it a science fiction film. I'm like, no, I don't think this is a science fiction film for me because there's no fictionalized science in this.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because it's set in space doesn't mean it's a science fiction film.
Yeah.
This is not a science fiction film for me.
It would be like saying a film about, a plane crash is a science fiction film.
Yeah.
We literally have the technology to go into space. Then they're not like making up technology here. This is the technology they use that we use to go into space. So it's not science fiction. Yeah, I don't really understand that. I don't know what you would call it. It's essentially like a like a movie like Castaway. It's a stranded movie, but done in space.
Yeah.
And I don't think you need to and of course it's fictional, but most films are, the plots are fictional. But, if you're doing a fairly realistic film, like, as I said, you can have a film where a plane gets hijacked or something by like some make-believe organization. That doesn't mean it's like science fiction. I mean, like it could happen, right? I don't understand that.
No, there are apparently some inaccuracies. Apparently, Sandra Bullock should be wearing a space nappy or whatever, but whatever. I'm not bothered.
yeah, it's not going to take me out of it.
The scene where the ISS catches fire, I thought was great. Like, the fire always seems to get very close to Ryan. Like, there's these air canisters that start catching fire and moving very quickly. It's all quite tense. But when she gets to the Soyuz, one of the Russian pods, and tries to undock, it feels like very tense because the whole pod suddenly is shaking at all times. And it's like the ISS could blow up at any moment. Ryan is just concentrating so hard on how to undock and trying to ignore what's happened around her. And it's so tense because we're not actually seeing the danger anymore. It's all behind the door behind her. So it's just a really interesting directional choice there. The fact that, you've had so much spectacle in terms of the danger and the tension, but now it's all unseen.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great change up there.
Yeah, definitely. There's a bunch of shots that I really liked. So I liked when they see the damage that's been done to the Explorer, and you see all the corpses, and the camera's just going around. And I love how the camera does this kind of thing of focusing on something small and sort of inconsequential, as the camera's just like,
he has a name.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the person, but I'm talking about, like, for example, it looks at,
Marvin the Martian.
I know. It looks at, Marvin the Martian, Looks at. I thought you were talking about the Indian fella. I'm not racist.
No.
I know he's a man. I'm not saying it looks at a thing. That thing over there, the third character who we never see.
No, I thought you were being racist to Martians, but carry on.
Oh yeah. That would have been more acceptable. But anyway, unless there are any Martians watching this. We've lost those.
Sorry, Matt Damon.
Yeah, we've lost those viewers. No, but where it looks at Marvin the Martian. Just go through and then go around, and it's looking at some woman's retainer and then focusing on the woman who is dead. I thought that was pretty crazy. So, but just all of these things flying around and just like, oh, look at this thing. Oh man, there's a dead body over there. But just doing it like almost like smooth. Yeah, smooth. Yeah.
Yeah, that did make me jump. Though I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. But what was another thing? Where she's crying because she thinks she's going to die, and it's quite an emotional scene. It's
a CGI tear done well.
A CGI tear done really well. Yeah, I quite like that. Yeah, which is a first because what was it? We had a bad CGI tear 2 weeks
Batman
ago.
and Robin, yeah.
Yeah, Batman and Robin.
So, directing score, Boaz, what are you going for?
Yeah, I'm going pretty high because I remember this incredibly fondly when we watched it last year. I remember it incredibly fondly, and I was just thinking, like, I think that was one of the most spectacular things I'd ever seen, and the direction is on point. Not only are the effects incredible, I think the camera work, as we've just been saying, is so innovative, and what was it? The sound design and the music and everything. I just thought it was a full bag. I really liked it, so I'm going to give it like a 9.1.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's really impressive. I think Alfonso Cuarón is a marvel. He's just a modern master, in my opinion. Some of the films he's done. I mean, Roma on Netflix. I mean, if you had a chance to see that on the cinema,
I should see that.
I'm very jealous. Roma is just some shots in that. I have no idea how you did that. I have no idea. And it's the same with this as well. Like, I have no idea how the fuck you achieve some of these shots. I mean, that opening shot, 13 minutes long, is crazy. Apparently, they when they were shooting that shot in the sound studio, they only had one more chance to do it before the studio was going to shut them down or whatever.
Oh man, that's crazy.
So they had to get it right.
Yeah.
So I might go a little bit higher.
Yeah.
I'll go 9.3.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah. What was it? I was talking to a friend actually recently about this film before I knew I was doing this, and he loves these. Like, did you know facts? Did you know in this film? Did you know in that film?
Okay.
And there was one where he said, "Did you know in Gravity? There's one scene where a slight reflection, like a tint, on one of the astronauts' helmets. It might be George Clooney. You can see a astronaut cameraman like recording the film.
Oh, really?
I think that's brilliant. I think that is so goddamn funny.
No.
Like, because even in regular films, like, there are, mistakes like that. You can't, avoid every reflective surface. But I like how he went out of his way and just have a little, like, an astronaut there.
Know.
Yeah. I'll check that out. I'm pretty sure that's true, but I'll check that out. I'll see if it's true. But yeah. I'll send you the screenshot.
I kind of don't want you to, actually.
Yeah, because what? It might ruin the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn
pull
it.
you out of it. Yeah. I just thought that was a funny.
Right.
Funny
Right. Screenplay then. As we said, there's not really much to it in terms of plot. It's basically get to this ship, get to this ship, get to this ship, land, or go into re-entry.
Survive, yeah. Yeah.
But certainly thematically, there's some really interesting things going on here. I quite liked the scene where George Clooney and Sandra Bullock are traveling to the ISS, the International Space Station, and Clooney is asking Bullock about where she comes from and where's home for you. And you're thinking he's basically doing this to keep her calm and collected so she can preserve her oxygen. Then quickly it becomes quite poignant for Sandra Bullock's character, Ryan, that her daughter accidentally died so suddenly, and she says, I just wake up, I go to work, and I just drive. And it's like, that's all she does now, and it's just really interesting setup for a character desperately trying to survive, but yet no one is missing her.
Not with really much to live for, yeah.
She's cut herself off from the world. It's just a really interesting emotions going on here, that they're exploring in a pure survival film. And then there's a really interesting scene where Ryan is stuck in the Soyuz after George Clooney's character has died. Well, drifting off. That she's running out of fuel, but then makes contact with what seems to be an Asian person on the radio, on an AM radio signal. And it becomes very clear that there's a language barrier and he can't help her. Then she just wants to hear the dogs barking, and then Ryan just starts barking as well, which is kind of such an emotional scene because she knows it's ridiculous and that she's trying to do something other than cry because she knows she's going to die in her head. And she says to the Asian guy, no one will pray for me, no one will mourn for me, and asks, will you pray for me? And then hears a baby and hopes to see her daughter soon after she kills herself, basically. So she decides to let all the oxygen out and basically gives up and wants to just die sitting there. But then Clooney turns up through the airlock and you're like, what the hell are you doing? You just killed her.
Yeah.
And like, oh, it's just her subconscious.
Yeah.
So it's quite a funny performance from Clooney there, but soon becomes poignant where he says to her, your kid died. Doesn't get any tougher than that. But still, it's a matter of what you do now. If you decide to go on, then you got to just get on with it. Sit back and enjoy the ride. You got to plant both feet on the ground and start living life. And it's just great because Ryan is ready to die, but subconsciously she wants to live.
Do you know what would have been a better line for Clooney to say? Like, he opens the hatch, comes in, and he's like, I'm Batman and I'm here to save you.
No. God, no.
Unofficial Batman sequel.
I'm actually Batman. I retired.
I became a spaceman. Crime is in space too. I need to save everyone.
Oh, God. Yeah, the Earth got frozen, and I was like, I can't be asked to live on the Earth anymore. I want to be an astronaut.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, she's got this far, so she can't give up on life now. And I thought that was just a great way to craft what her subconscious is thinking. As you know, as long as you're alive, you've got something to live for, kind of thing.
And I really like, you know, sorry to go back on directing, but even talking about that scene, the visuals in that were just incredible. It's done so amazing when he breaks through, and then when he talks to her, the camera work is on point, the lighting is really nice, it's gorgeous. And then I do love, like, when she kind of realizes that he's not real, and you go from and it's all done seamlessly. George Clooney next to her giving her advice, to her face listening to the advice, to zooming out, and there's no George Clooney. It's like, you know, he's just vanished. I like that. I thought that was done really well.
Yeah, and she basically seamlessly, you know, in the same place from where the scene starts to where the scene ends as well.
Yeah.
I just thought just really great kind of blocking, I guess, in that sense. But then when Ryan is literally talking to Matt about her daughter Sarah, that she's got knotty hair and she doesn't like to brush it, and to say that she loves her, it's so emotional while she's preparing to fire the rockets. And the music just builds it really affected me.
Yeah.
I was like, please survive. Oh, it's brilliant stuff. It was very emotional.
Yeah, it was pretty emotional. Especially after all she went through. You're like, Jesus, you know, you do feel it. You're like, you know, please God, stay alive.
I quite enjoyed the re-entry scene where, yes, at times you feel like you should probably be burning up right now, but when she, you know, hits the water, you're like, yes, she's made it. Opens the airlock. Relief. Oh no, she's drowning.
Yeah.
The module's sinking. She gets out, can't swim, still sinking, get out of the spacesuit, then swims to the surface.
Yeah, because there's the costume is so goddamn... It's funny because it's like the realization. It's like, get out of there. And then she just sinks to the bottom and you're like, why is that? Oh my God, the costume's too heavy. The astronaut, get it off, woman, get it off.
So I quite like the way the film thinks you're safe, but oh no, not yet.
Yeah, I do like that because a lot of other movies, it would be like, she touches ground, all right, it's fine. And you've been through this roller coaster, so you're like, sigh of relief. But then you're like, no, she could still die. Oh my God. So it kind of, it's like it lulls you into a false sense of security. It's like, oh, this is the end, she's fine. Oh no, she's going to die. And then, you know, I think it makes it more cathartic when she gets on the beach. You're like, oh wow, I've just been through a lot. That was a lot, you know. So I like how that was written. I think that was done pretty well.
Any favourite lines, Boaz?
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Do you want me to read some out?
Yeah. You start, and then I'll chime in when I can remember some.
Okay. There's some really funny moments actually in this film. Half of North America just lost their Facebook.
Yeah, that was funny.
I know you never realized how devastatingly good looking I am, but I need you to stop staring and help me with the tether.
Yeah.
That was kind of a bit like self-aware as well. The fact that they've literally cast George Clooney in this, you know, very handsome man. And, you know, fuck. Right, copy that.
Yeah, that was quite funny.
Hey, you want to know the good news? I'm going to break Antelope's record, and I think mine's going to stand for a long, long time. I mean, does it stop when you die, or does it just keep going if you're even dead in the suit? I don't know. And just simply, I hate space.
Yeah. I think that was a good line. That kind of encapsulates the entire movie. Screw this.
My favourite line though is I think fairly near the beginning, where George Clooney asks Ryan, "How you feeling?" Like a chihuahua that's been tumble dried.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I thought that was great. How about you, sir?
I think my favourite line is when she was. I think you've already mentioned it, but when she's talking to the Chinese guy and saying, "Nobody will miss me. Nobody will pray for me. Will you pray for me? I would pray, but nobody taught me how." I think that's quite nice.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
That's definitely stuck one.
Yeah, it's certainly a very emotional scene.
Yeah. One of the things I think could be improved upon, and it's like my one like major gripe with the movie. And again, I think I've said this before with some movies. I'm not sure if I just come off as a heartless bastard or if it's the problem with the But like, I did not really feel sad when Clooney died. And I'm like, he's such a great character. I don't know why I didn't like bowl up when he just flew off. So I'm not sure if they could have done his death better, where it was more impactful. But he's like so important, and he's really important to her to keep him going. But I just did not feel it. And to me, I think that is in my opinion, that is a big sin with the writing of the film. They could have done something. I'm not sure what, but they could have done something to make me feel it. I think it would have been, to me, I think when he died, I should have been bowling over, and I wasn't. So,
okay, I had that scene in acting.
Yeah,
but for me, I think it did work for me. I mean, it certainly didn't express my most emotional moment in the film. I think the more emotional moments in the film is her willingness to like
carry on,
basically change her mind and to carry on, and to keep surviving.
Yeah,
rather than Clooney's death. It still affected me a little bit, but just not as much as those later moments.
Yeah, no, true. And I agree with that. But that would be my huge gripe with the film. And if I were to have gone through these same story beats, I would want my viewers to really feel the impact of Clooney's death and sacrifice. And, I just didn't feel it. And I just find that's a shame because it's a really big deal. He gave his life to save her. And for some reason, I just didn't feel as bad as I should. So... And I'm not going to just chalk that down to the acting. I think there could be some way you can convey that in the writing, and I don't think they did. But, overall, this is a small gripe because we haven't really squared in on that. It is essentially a film about her and surviving, but, that's my major, thematic sort of gripe with it. I'm like, man, I wish... But maybe they did that intentionally so that when he comes back, you think he's really alive.
Possibly.
So you're like, I don't feel like he died.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, he's back again. All right, fair enough. But, I don't know. I feel like he should have died.
You literally could be waiting like 90 minutes for him to go around the orbit, around the Earth, and then he comes back, in that scene. You could be thinking that while you're watching it.
I think maybe that's what I was thinking subconsciously. It's like he didn't have a real proper death. He just sort of floated away. And then when he turns back up, you're like, I guess he's not dead. But then you're like, well, I guess he's dead. But I wanted that feeling of, oh shit, he's dead. Oh, shit. Oh my God, why? But I didn't get that feeling either times. I just think that's a missed opportunity.
I think it could be a way the characters are written.
It could be. You don't know a lot about him. He's just kind of the comedy, and he's saying nice things to her, but you don't know a great deal about him. So it could be there's no connection.
I think for me as well, Wazowski is a pure astronaut. He's done loads of missions, and I think when you go up there, you are semi-subconsciously preparing for death kind of thing anyway, or you don't really, it's either that or you're not thinking about it at all, but the risk is extremely high. They know for sure that space is incredibly dangerous, so they are specifically trained to keep their emotions in check. Whereas with Ryan, this is a specialist mission for her. She's gone through all the basic training to do this specific mission, so she doesn't have I don't know. She doesn't have the full experience of all the training, I guess. Because I'd imagine it's just basic training. I don't know. I'm not an astronaut. But that's what I'm thinking with that scene. Like, he's prepared to die in some ways mentally, kind of thing. That's why maybe you don't feel it as much.
Yeah, I mean, that said, I'm reminded of, Apollo 13, the movie. In that film, like, it's written in such a way where they're all freaking out at the thought that they could die, and they've got to come to terms with it, and they've got to find solutions. And it's very dramatic. But apparently the real Apollo 13 mission, all of the astronauts did not freak out once. They never raised their voice. They treated it like, oh shit, okay, I guess we've got to do this, that's mission's changed, I suppose. And very nonchalant, because I think you kind of get that fear out of you in the academy. However, like Ron Howard said, he didn't sort of want to write them like that because he felt people wouldn't worry about them. If then
it would be a bad film.
Yeah, well, I don't think that necessarily bad, but it's like, I think you don't worry about them if they're not worried. And I think you might be right. I think Sandra Bullock's character is written that she's worried about, dying because she hasn't gone through all that training. She's a scientist. George Clooney, he's not at all worried. He's probably been conditioned out of this, just like, the other astronauts. But that said, while I think that makes it more accurate, it doesn't make me feel anything for him because he doesn't seem to care that he's going to die. So maybe if they had just made him a little scared towards the end, I don't know. But that's my one thing. I just didn't feel it. Whatever, there might be a logical reason as we're talking about why he's written like that, but or why I didn't feel it. But I just felt it would have been nice to be sad at his passing. But that's just my thing. So screenplay, I'll still rate it very high because that's just literally like one issue I have. But I will take a few points for that. So maybe like I'll go an 8.8.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. I think what's great about this is it is kind of a very, very simple story. It's just a very simple survival story, a tight 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's no fat on the bones here at all, which is great. Very emotional, certainly. It's just a really, really interesting idea that this film, how the characters are written in terms of this survival story. The fact that we're being very emotionally involved in a character that has basically nothing back home. She's very alone. She, her daughter died tragically. She doesn't seem to have any friends. She doesn't talk about anyone else in her life to Kowalski. But the fact that we do root for her is quite a remarkable thing, really. So I'll go like a 9.
I think it's also quite incredible that it's a 2-man project. Like, it's literally 2 actors.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then for the last half, it's just her. And, I mean, you don't really see that. Like a blockbuster, which is essentially just steered by one actor. There are no side characters or, stand-ins or other...
Just dead ones.
It's just her. Yeah, just dead ones. You don't even get to really see them.
And one that has a nice jig.
Yeah.
In space.
I like that as a line. It's like, how's... I can't remember the name of that scientist, but how's he doing? And he's like... Houston is like, and he's like, he appears to be doing the Macarena.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, that was quite fun.
I mean, you could class this film as like a bottle movie, but just the bottle of space, I suppose,
Yeah, I think so. I think you could say, it's a bottle movie. I think you're right. A bottle movie, but done in space.
Massive bottle.
Yeah, huge bottle. But it's a giant empty bottle. It's the biggest empty bottle.
Yeah. Right, acting then. The scene where they reach the ISS and Dr. Stone has to let, George Clooney go, we've talked about, obviously. But the acting I did like from George Clooney there when he lets go. He does look and sound calm, but his eyes start to get emotional. And when he is drifting back, you can tell with his fast, panicked breathing that he's having this realization moment that he is going to die. You have to, it's not a big close up on that, but it's very subtle from George.
It's not overacted. It's like fairly, muted and
Yes, it might have not brought, as we've said, the most emotional reaction from us, but there is some, great subtle stuff there from George Clooney with just the intense breathing. And obviously later on in the scene, well, as the movie progresses, Clooney is still talking to Ryan, trying to help her on the ISS.
Oh yeah.
He knows he's going to die, so he gets past that moment of realization that he's going to die. I'm like, well, I know I'm going to die, but I still need to save Ryan.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
When Sandra Bullock tries to escape the ISS in the Soyuz, but is still attached to the cords from the escape chute, and again, such a tense scene, but when she finally gets control and comes to a stop, she really wants to like freak out and swear in the top of her voice, but she does it like quietly under her breath and controls herself and stays calm. Like really subtly done from Sandra Bullock there. I really like that very small moment that she has. But I think arguably one of my favorite scenes in the film is literally right at the end. Those last moments where Sandra Bullock is dragging herself to the beach is amazing. Like the camera tracks her the whole way. Like Sandra feels too tired to laugh. You can really feel the weight of gravity as she stands up. It's extraordinary, I find. You get that entirely from her acting, and the fact that the whole film has been in 0G before this moment. The way she gets up and the music too just makes it feel really hard. And when she puts both feet on the ground, it's just amazing stuff. I found that really emotional as well. It's just like, wow, she's been through so much, and the fact that you can literally just feel gravity in that moment is quite extraordinary from the filmmakers for me.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, it's this huge moment of, you feel the willpower. You feel, listen, I've just been through absolute hell, mentally, physically, spiritually, and I think you're right. You can feel the weight, but it's not even just. It's both. I think it's like you feel the weight of. She's back on Earth, and she's not used to, gravity anymore, and so she's struggling to keep herself up. It's like triumphant, like, I'm walking even though, I'm literally putting my all into this walk, even though, all the stuff I've been through. And then it's like also kind of an emotional weight. It's like, she's carrying the weight of just everything that's happened to her. Yeah, I felt a kind of, I felt that. I felt like a sort of a feeling of triumph, of success, but also like kind of like sadness. It's like, oh man, geez, this is a lot. We've been through a lot. And you could feel that, and it's something as simple as like picking yourself up and walking, but it's not really.
Favorite performance?
I think I would go Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, same. Mine, Sandra Bullock. Basically, it's her film. She carries
it. It is her film.
Carries it incredibly well.
Yeah.
So acting, I think it's really good,
Yeah.
I can't fault it too much, but I feel like the impressive things in this film are the directing for sure, and the writing actually. So I'll go like an 8.8.
That's good.
How about you, sir?
I'll go like an 8.5, I think. That's what I'm feeling. But definitely I think she does a tremendous job, especially, if she was a shit actor, like that's her for 80% of the movie, but she's not. She does like deliver, and I think that's great.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Gravity. Gravity gets 53.5. That is a very, very good score. So, Mr. Encyclopedia Man, what is your pick for Sandra Bullock films?
My pick is Rude Box. Oh, hang on a minute. Boombox, I mean. No, Bird Box. Do you remember, because I was actually thinking, the title of this film always makes my mind flash back to early 2000. Robbie Williams came out with that really horrible song.
Okay.
Rude Box. Did you never listen to that?
No, I can't remember.
It was his one attempt at a rap song. It is bad. It is really, really bad.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So anybody who's listening, listen to that. Listen to that now.
Okay. Yeah. And then come back and listen to this.
Yeah, and then listen to this. Yeah. It'll make you want to wrap up your ears.
So why did you pick Bird Box?
I'd heard about it on like Netflix, and I remembered it. It got quite a lot of traction when it was released.
Yeah.
I was thinking of doing something more comedic, so I was thinking like Miss Congeniality, but then I was like, I don't know. I just decided on this. One, I hadn't watched it.
Yeah.
Two, I'd heard a lot about it. It was popular, but I kind of missed it, and had Sandra Bullock. And then I thought, it would probably fit more with, you're doing Gravity's drama, so I was like, maybe I'll pick this as a drama. Yeah, so, that's why I've picked this.
Because thematically, they're very similar, I think, certainly with...
They are very similar.
Her character.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't... What I would say, it's very kind of, keeps to herself, sort of strange woman. I would say she has a different view of children.
Yeah.
She doesn't like children in this film, but she has to have children. And it's more like she realizes, I think the point of the movie...
Boy, girl, get over here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not giving you names.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't like kids. And she's got a kid, and she really is begrudgingly having a baby. But by the end of it, it's like, kids are what this is for. She's very, doing anything to protect. I would say she's kind of the opposite of her character in the other one, where she actually did love her daughter, and then she passed, and she's still not getting over that.
I like this film. I did. I enjoyed it. I think there are problems with it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Some big problems. But I really, really like the idea. I just think there's an execution problem here, but the idea is great. So what happens in Bird Box?
Sandra Bullock's character is having a baby. It also jumps back and forth a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew you were going to have a problem with this because it started to tire on me as well. And so many films have this flashbacking and stuff. I think it does it a bit much. It's a bit much. It's a bit nauseating. You're like, Jesus Christ, So it does it a bit too much.
What time zone am I in?
Yeah, exactly. And there's no indication when it's going to jump back and forth. So you're like, yeah, it is pretty I think, it's quite nauseating to the mind. And you're like, where am I exactly? But anyway, we'll get to that in script and stuff. Her sister is helping her get through this. She's more pessimistic. Her sister is happy-go-lucky. She's quite fun. And then they basically hear on the TV. Now, this is the crazy thing I was going to say. Okay. And this kind of blew me away. She hears on the TV that people are committing suicide in Russia. And then it's moving.
Right.
It's moving west. So it's coming out of Russia, yeah? And then, obviously, I can't help but latch onto that with, the craziness that's going on in
Ukraine. It's awful, yeah.
In Ukraine and the Russian army, and you constantly hear about the Russians. But the fact that it comes out of Russia here, and then in Gravity, the whole thing was caused by the Russians blowing up one of their spy satellites.
Yeah. And
they caused the debris. So in both Sandra Bullock films, the Russians caused this. And then in real life, maybe Sandra Bullock is doing something about this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe whenever Russians do something, she just appears.
Honestly, we didn't do this on purpose. This is complete coincidence.
This is 100% a coincidence. We did not search Sandra Bullock films where
anti-Russian films,
where these problems come from Russia. They seem to come from Russia. I don't know. I just thought it was a weird coincidence. It kind of blew me away. Did you even clock that in, or did you just notice that now I noticed it?
No, I did clock it in. I was like, oh God, no.
I was like, oh my God, not. Oh no.
There are other countries, Yeah,
I know. It's like you can't escape this. It's like, for Christ's sake. So anyway, Russians are everywhere, all over the news, and even in the films we're reviewing. Damn it.
Yeah.
But so anyway, sorry for that. But anyway, so people start committing suicide, and it turns out there are these creatures that are moving from east to west, and they get to the United States. And if you look at these creatures, they're so beautiful that you'll just kill yourself. It's never explained what the hell these things are.
Take your blind off, Boaz. Take it off. It's beautiful. Boaz can't see me, by the way.
No, because you're too beautiful.
This whole time.
You're too beautiful. I've got to cover you up.
Oh, thank you.
If I see you, I will slit my throat, so I'll smash my head into the monitor, and I like being alive. Just slightly more than I like your beautiful face.
Oh, I'm alive. I'm just... The imagery is just stunning, what I'm seeing right now.
Absolutely glowing.
I'm loving life right now.
Yeah.
Enjoying the sunshine. Carry on, sorry.
But absolutely crazy plot. So there are these creatures, never explain where they come from, what their purpose is, but apparently they look so nice that you'll just kill yourself. And obviously they're never shown, otherwise we would kill ourselves. So, they did a good job there in that film. They saved the audience. And her sister commits suicide. A bunch of people commit suicide when they see it. So basically her and a handful of survivors she's sheltered by this couple who the wife also, when she's saving her, sees it and then just walks into a burning car. It's really quite freaky.
And funny. Yeah.
And yeah, kind of funny, but pretty freaky. And essentially, so it's not like this creature is killing them. It's like it makes you want to kill yourself. Like it makes you choose to kill yourself because you're like, oh, so beautiful. I don't know if you're trying to go to heaven to see it, or like what's going on there.
No, I think you have a choice. You either accept what you're seeing, I think, or you're like, this is fucking horrible, and it makes you kill yourself. But I think if you're willing to let it in, and I think it kind of makes you go insane. It's very ambiguous.
I'm not sure if anybody says it's horrible. Any time anybody looks at it, like they either think it's that the woman thought it was her mother and then just killed herself, and the other woman, the guy, with the baby, Olympia, he's like, isn't it beautiful? And she's like, and then she just rushes the window. So I don't exactly know what it is. It's like, I don't know. It's never explained. It's never explained.
I think it kind of dependent on the host, I think, of like, you're either accepting what you're seeing or not.
Yeah, well, they do say something, where he was like, the people in the mental institution didn't kill themselves, but they're trying to get people. Maybe it's if you're already insane and haven't committed suicide from your own insanity, maybe it can't tip you over the edge. But if you're not insane, maybe it tips you over the edge and you try and kill yourself. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. I do actually quite like that aspect of it, that it does leave it a little ambiguous.
I actually think that that's good because I was going to say it's a complaint, but actually it intrigues you. It makes you want to know more.
Yeah.
So to say like there are these creatures and you see them and it makes you want to kill yourself. You don't know if these are like demons or what the hell they are. And one of the characters, he comes up with a theory, but like, there's no proof of this. Like literally nothing is revealed. And I kind of like that. It makes it scary. You're like, I don't know what the hell this is. And obviously you can't see it because, it's like that would ruin the scare. It's meant to be so different that you would just kill yourself. So, I like that. I think it's very weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, her and a bunch of survivors, they try and survive and keep blindfolded.
So directing then, I think most of this chat is mainly going to be about the screenplay.
Yeah, I think so.
I haven't got too many notes on directing, but there are some interesting scenes. Like the scene where Sandra Bullock's character, Mallory, and Sarah Paulson's character, Jessica, are like driving away from the hospital. And after Sandra Bullock sees a woman smash her head against the window repeatedly, was actually quite hilarious, but there we go. In the car, there's an explosion in the background, people seemingly going crazy. Then Mallory's phone goes off, or someone's phone goes off, and is trying to look for it. And while Jessica is driving, you hear this very strange sound effect. And she says, "What the fuck is that?" And then all of a sudden, she's shit scared driving with tears down her face. The crash was pretty awesome as well to finish the scene. And Jessica is still like holding the steering wheel, looking scared as the car barrel rolls, while Mallory is like is flailing around as you would expect.
Yeah.
So it's just a great scene in giving a sense of what this thing is through a subtle sound effect and acting to begin with. Then when a woman gets infected, you hear more of this ghostly sound effect for longer, and it's like a possession monster to begin with.
I thought it was intriguing. I think I quite liked it because it's like they're running from something but you never see what it is, and some people see it, and it is very kind of eerie, and it's always just off camera whenever it's around. You can feel its presence because it's like the wind picks up, so it like moves things about, seemingly, I don't know, via telekinesis or whatever. And then those people see it and then just kill themselves. So I thought it was a pretty cool opening, especially how quick all that happened. I wouldn't say it was like hella scary or whatever, but it was like, whoa, wow, this is starting, It was kind of cool. But I do like the sort of the sounds of the creature when they're near. And essentially, it's not much, but it's
very subtle, isn't it?
Just rumbling, and it's subtle. It's rumbling and wind and whispers as well. Just whispers off into the distance, and I just like that. It's like, oh my, you don't know, you have no idea its size, its its density, like where it's actually located, what it's made of. Again, it's just this noise. It's ruffling leaves. it's whistling and it's whispering, but you don't exactly know what it is. I kind of like that.
Yeah, basically the monster in this film is the camera and the music.
Yeah, essentially.
That's essentially it.
Yeah, it's like just a couple of leaves over there. Oh, Jesus Christ, leaves! But, you don't know what the fuck it is. So, when you're like, leaves are moving. Ah, okay, it's here. But you don't, I think it's kind of interesting because you could do this on such a shoestring budget. And, maybe they did. But it's like, and, you've got a good reason not to show the monster, I just think it's interesting. And I think whatever anybody thinks of is probably scarier than what they could make.
And I think certainly the scene that establishes the monster the most, I guess, is right at the end, I would say, in those last few scenes. But we've just added, like, tree movement, I guess. Like, the music and sounds are just really intense. If you played those last few scenes on mute, it would be incredibly boring in terms of suspense and tension building. The sound and music literally does all the work. And I love that, My favorite scene, I would say, is the car GPS scene was really cool because the monster is basically, as I said, the camera and the creepy sound effects, essentially.
I thought the really interesting thing of that is you have all of these shots of inside the car and the GPS and outside the car. Inside the car, out the GPS, outside the car. Like this triangle of shots because you're like, they're inside the car. They've hit something. What did we hit? Oh, there's something on the proximity detector, and then you remember where it was like it was like a dead body. That made me laugh. I thought that was. I don't think that should have made me laugh. But, the way that was delivered just kind of made me laugh.
Just a speed bump. Just a speed bump.
It's pretty grim. They went over a dead body. He's like. Just squelch. He's like, it's just a speed bump.
Definitely his head as well.
Yeah. But then I like that where it was like they feel something, there's whooshing and noise, and then the proximity detector's on, and they're like, it must be a truck. But then you don't have the three, where it was doing, as I said, inside the car, GPS, outside the car. It's like, no, it stays on the inside of the car and the GPS. And it's like, well, go around the truck. And then it's like, it's next to you. It's next to you. It's over you. It's, the other end of you. It's literally everywhere. And it's just kind of making noise all over the car. I find it hilarious because you're not really seeing anything. The camera is just looking at blanked windows. And that's scary. And I think, or that's a little freaky. I think that was kind of the scariest moment in the film. In the car.
Oh, yeah. So, that's definitely my favorite shot as well. This film is basically turning like a slasher film into a high-concept monster movie. I think that's what I was getting from certainly that scene. I like as well, just adding to what you were saying, like the subtle lighting changes as well, even though the monster is essentially the camera, as we've said, and the sound effects, but there's really interesting lighting changes through, because they've kind of painted the windows and the lighting changes. That was really impressive.
Definitely.
Which is essentially just like, this is a scene that feels incredibly intense, but it's basically just a bunch of people in a blacked out car. That's it.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. And I find that strange because I do agree. I think that was my favorite scene. There are scenes with like a lot more effects and stunts. Like, for example, when that guy, you come across the first crazy guy and he tries to kill them and, the black guy basically sacrifices himself. I mean, that was a little bit... I would say the biggest moment is where they let that guy in the house and he starts just opening all the windows and the Olympia throws herself out the window. The old woman, stabs herself in the throat and he starts stabbing the hell out of, the older guy as well. Oh, man. What's he called? John Malkovich. You remember he starts stabbing at John Malkovich. That was an interesting scene. Like that, I think was one of the most high octane things, but it wasn't as scary as the car thing, which I just think was was paced so well that I wish it was done the same way. I wish a lot of the other actiony bits where things ramp up and you do see squibs and blood, that it was done in a way that ratchets up the tension like that, because it really wasn't. It was with that scene, it's like action, death, and then it's like end scene. Yeah. I think the car one, it just perfectly did the tension up and up. They should have done it with every other, and I would say the ending as well, but more so the car scene.
For directing score, I think it's directed pretty well. I think a lot of the problems in this film for me will be in screenplay, but as directing goes, I think it does a pretty decent job, to be honest. So I'll go like an 8.6 for me. How about you, sir?
So, as I was saying, I think it's done pretty well. I do like, I think one of the flares I like is that occasionally you do see things from the blindfolded, and not that occasionally, it happens quite regularly. But going from when they put the blindfolds on and you're seeing everything blindfolded, so you can kind of get a sort of glimpse of what they're going through. They have no idea.
A sense of what they're seeing,
Yeah, they have no idea what's going on. They might see like little flickers of light. And it does that quite a lot, and I quite like that. I think it's directed fairly competently. There are some scenes which are pretty good. I like how the monster is sort of portrayed, as we were talking about. Even like parts where you sort of get close to it, and it just seems to be you're seeing the edges. You're seeing more leaves fly about. So it's just leaves. But it does feel ominous, like just if you moved a couple inches to the left, you might see it. That said, I don't think there are like many like standout shots. You know what I mean? So it's like this is directed well, but it's not like Gravity, where, again, I was saying they're doing stuff with the camera.
It's on another level, really, isn't it?
This is on another level. Like this is definitely, if I saw that director's work, I would recognize that it was that director. There's nothing like particularly signature about how this is done.
No.
So it's just directed well, but it's not like done as a masterpiece or has a particular signature.
I think to his credit in this film, I didn't feel disappointed that actually we didn't see an actual monster, weirdly.
Oh no, I think I would be very disappointed if I did see the monster, because it's like apparently they did have, because I remember the making of this, and apparently they did have a model of what the monster was going to look like. And it's one of those things. I'm glad they never used it. I'm almost ashamed that I said that, because you might look at what it is and it'll ruin the thing for you, because it looks like crap. But in my head, that's not what it is. But it's like anything you can think of will not. If you go like, this is the most terrifying thing, the most beautiful thing, you can't then show it, because what I've got in my head, like even what I've not got in my head, I see it and I go, well, I've seen stuff like that before. If it was a freaky thing with 8 tentacles, I've seen stuff like that before. If I had lots of, I've seen stuff like that before. So I'm glad they never showed it.
Well, you can't beat tentacles, though. Tentacles improve everything.
Yeah, tentacles are amazing. Yeah, but I think it's one of those things like, you shouldn't really see it, because it's like, and I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they did that.
I get the impression this is more of a spiritual monster as well. Like, there's nothing physical about it anyway. You literally can't see it. You can see what it looks like when it's in your head, kind of thing.
You see no footprints of it. You see no shadows of it. There are no shadows of it on the ground and stuff. It seemingly just appears out of nowhere. So it just comes into the garage, where he's in the garage, and it just comes into other places. So, it might not even be one creature. Could be like millions of them. You have like no information about this thing.
It kind of reminds me of a Doctor Who episode. I think it's around the David Tennant era, where like this monster basically infects your shadow, so you end up having 2 shadows, and it kind of kills you from there.
That sounds amazing,
because there are kind of like definitely a lot of shadow changes in this directing here, in the special effects. So I feel like it does kind of travel in the shadows a little bit.
Yeah.
I got the sense, but I just love kind of how ambiguous this is.
I think you're right. I think my bad saying no shadows, but definitely like no fingerprints or footprints or any sort of thing. It does ruffle things around. Yeah, it is kind of interesting.
So score Bowers, what are you going for directing?
Yeah, I think I might go a 7.9 or maybe an 8. Actually, I'll go an 8. I'll go an 8.
Right, screenplay then. I quite liked how, like, every major death we learn about more about the monster hunting these people. We see Sarah Paulson just look shit scared, and her eyes go a tad red with a little sound effect. Then when Douglas's wife dies and walks into the burning car, we hear like a ghostly voice. Then when Greg dies, the guy tied to the chair looking at the monitor, we see shadows move like it's traveling through them, and that you don't have to look at the monster through the naked eye.
Yeah.
Then later in the present, the monster can somehow make leaves float, which makes the monster have more of a physical presence. So I kind of like the progression of the fact that we learn just a tiny bit more about what this thing is.
Yeah. And then eventually you even get to the fact that, like, it can influence followers to uncover people's eyes. And then I like that as well. You always learn more. And it was like the first guy, they can't tell he's a follower, and then he kills one of the guys. The second guy, they think he's a regular guy, and then he turns out to be a follower. And he has, and I should have said this in directing, I like when he's looking at the babies and it goes a close up on him, and his eyes are huge. Like, he doesn't actually have a pupil. It's like, it's all blue. And I think you notice that from all the other followers, that even at the end, they're like literally looking at their eyes, because their eyes look fucking weird. Like, they're bloodshot and there is no iris. And I kind of like that. So you learn that about the followers. Then you learn it can kind of imitate people later, because she says, don't remove the blindfold no matter what you hear. And you hear the monster is trying to sound like her. It's trying to sound like Tom's, trying to sound like everybody, to be like, just remove the blindfold. I know I told you don't remove the blindfold, but remove the blindfold. And, the guy's like, what? It's trying to remove it. And so I do like that there is a progression of, like, knowledge of this creature and what it can do, but never going too far.
It's all very small steps.
Yeah, small steps. It's so that it's not so dull, I think, because this is quite simple of, like, you see a creature and it makes you kill yourself. But they do it in such a way that it's not boring, because you're like, it does more than that, but we're going to spoon feed you what it can do. And, they keep making these mistakes, not knowing it could do this, and more of them die, but there is a kind of progression of its abilities, I think.
The scene where Mallory and her kids are traveling down the river, then encounter an infected guy, which Mallory fends off, felt a tad inconsistent with what we've seen so far, with the infected people literally trying to commit suicide at the earliest opportunity. So it felt odd that he was attacking Mallory and repeating, take off your blindfold. But then it all made sense when Tom Hollander's character turns up, Gary, at the house. And he seems pretty normal, but you don't cast Tom Hollander as a normal guy. You just don't do that.
No.
When the two pregnant ladies are giving birth upstairs, Tom Holland gets out all these creepy pictures and just, like, starts scribbling really quickly, a new image of a creepy image.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's another thing that's quite interesting, because a lot of the images, have you noticed, like, just how different each face he draws is?
Yeah.
Some have, like, demon horns, some are, like, gaping maw with loads of teeth, some are... They're very quite different. So I'm wondering as well, like, does the creature just look like just whatever, or,
Yeah. So he gets out all these pictures of what they're seeing in their heads of what, or when they're infected, and it's like you either accept the creepy pictures and the monster doesn't kill you, but if you reject the imagery and think it's horrible, you get a funny death scene. And I think that's the problem with this film for me. I love this idea, but I think it's way too serious for me and not self-aware enough. If there were more jokes in this film, it would play better for me, because I don't think the death scenes are supposed to be funny, but unfortunately they are, for me anyway. I don't know whether I'm just a sick fuck, I don't know. When a large woman runs out of a window, what are we supposed to do, That's funny.
It is funny, to me. Do a flip. No, I actually do get what you mean like that. I think the setup and the idea of it is pretty scary, but when it comes to them actually killing themselves, it does come across as, like, Looney Tunes, like.
I think this is such a great idea, but I just think there just needs to be some more self-awareness that this is silly, and also the dual storytelling doesn't help either with that. But then after the scene with Tom Hollander, the dynamics of the story changes, which I really liked, because now we know there are people willing the monsters in their bodies and not choosing to die. So when we move 5 years later and it's just Tom, Mallory and the kids, and they're talking to a guy called Rick on the radio, you don't know if this guy's going to turn out to be infected or not. So now all the scenes on the boat going to this so-called place has extra uncertainty to it. So I do kind of like that introduction of Tom Hollander's character. So it definitely gives the film an added uncertainty going into the last acts of the film.
Yeah, like basically they could get to this place and then just be ambushed and, have their blindfolds taken off. That could definitely happen.
Because before that moment, if you're infected, you basically commit suicide. But now we learn people are literally choosing kind of to accept this monster and help the monster kind of thing. So,
because I think there are different interpretations you can say on its powers and stuff, but maybe it's like it leaves some people alive to make sure other people see it. Maybe it's aware that some people are blindfolding themselves, so it's like, and maybe I'll leave some of you alive to take off the blindfolds, because it doesn't seem like it can touch people or like hurt people or punch them or literally even take off their blindfold. You think that's a simple thing to do, just remove somebody's blindfold, but it doesn't seem to be able to do this. I think you're right when you said it might be just more spiritual. It's probably like non-corporeal. It can't really interact with the world.
And I think certainly, I know I keep banging on about this, but I think tonally it is a problem. And I think the dual storytelling in this film is a part of that. It's trying to be way too serious for what this film is. This is a very high concept thing. I'm like, you're taking it too seriously. If the tone just comes down a little bit, more comedic, you're going to have a lot more fun with this. I think it's just trying to be too clever, because we're basically watching two different films here. All the scenes in the present on the river just have Mallory and the kids. So that's why the subsequent character scenes are quite boring, because you're just waiting for Tom to die, because we already know he's dead. And the gunfight is not thrilling at all. And we're just waiting for the scenes of Mallory on the river to come back on again. So the intercutting of timelines was a bit pointless to me and unnecessary. Also, it made the scenes in the house with all the characters lose all its claustrophobic momentum by cutting back to the present all the time. I'm like, you're building so many great scenes here, and then we go back to the river stuff, and you're like, oh God, really? Why? Don't break it.
Yeah, it deflates it. Yeah. I also feel like you don't get a chance to really kind of live with these characters. Do you know what I mean? Because you're seeing like Mallory and then a different time and place with Mallory. I don't think you're getting enough time to really breathe with some of these characters. Although they do have some good scenes with Mallory, but I think they are just... I think you're right. They're just chopped up too much. It'd probably be better if they were just in a block with everything in the house and a block with everything later.
For me, there is no reason why this film can't just be in chronological order.
I think, as you said, the only kind of reveal is the fact that there's uncertainty when she gets to the destination. You think she knows it's a safe place, but it turns out there's ambiguity. It might not be a safe place. But other than that, there's not like some big reveal that's found out in the past. So I don't really think it justifies flashbacks. I don't really think it justifies it. And I think you're right. Just get rid. I didn't even know there were going to be flashbacks. I think it would probably work better if it didn't cut away, if it just told it.
Yeah, because when Tom dies, I felt nothing, because I knew he was dead already.
Yeah, he's going to die. Yeah. Well, he's not on the journey. He must bloody be dead,
Yeah. Because I know he's dead. I'm like, so I'm trying to think, like, why are you chopping this up? You're trying to be too clever for your own good here. Don't be too clever. This is such a great idea. You're messing it up.
Yeah, literally, you just need the idea. I think you're correct. Maybe not take itself too seriously, especially because some of the deaths are kind of sort of absurd, but treated seriously. So I think that's a valid criticism. But I think you're right, and I don't think it justifies, because I think there's so many problems with telling it out of sequence. And there is no justification to tell it out of sequence. I would be fine if there was like some giant reveal in the past that like, it justifies the flashbacks where you're like, oh my God, it's a good thing I didn't see that first. Otherwise, I wouldn't have context. But it's not really like that.
There is one scene that really pissed me off, though. And I thought, this is so fucking lazy. I did not like the scene when Lucy and Felix just decide to leave and get the car with no motivation behind it. It felt just like the writers were like, oh shit, we've written too many characters here. We've got to get rid of some, and I can't be bothered to think of a creative death, so let's just let them leave. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
That is just the definition of lazy writing.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That was just like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
What is the point in having those characters in your film if they're just going to leave?
Yeah.
Like, what?
I don't think there was much point, really. I think if I'm trying to think to justify it writing-wise, so they could get rid of the car, that's literally the only thing I could think of.
Possibly.
So that they can't escape. There are probably better ways to do this. Like, maybe the car gets stolen, damaged. Maybe Tom Hollander breaks the engine. You just use him, and he traps them in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of made those two characters feel pointless. I think before you just mentioned them again, I kind of forgot they existed.
Yeah, exactly.
Other than just like being there, and literally the guy keeps saying, I think he just had a few scenes where like his only lines were, "Yeah, we're fucked. Man, we're really fucked here."
Yeah, he says it twice.
Yeah, we get it, man. We get it. And then other than that, he also has like
the weird sex scene.
Yeah, he has a weird sex scene with her, where firstly it's like, you're never going to get a chance with this. And then Mallory sees them like, going at it.
You can't unsee that.
Yeah, other than that, like, it is complete. Yeah, maybe that's what the creature shows you. Just them shagging, and you're like, But yeah. Other than that,
those two were pointless.
They were completely pointless. They don't add anything. Even the other characters, the old woman, and especially John Malkovich. I think they're very important characters.
He was awesome.
The big guy as well. I mean, he saved them, and and he also had all this knowledge about like end of the world stuff and spirits and stuff. Well, it's not so much knowledge; it's more shit that he read online. And he was kind of funny. I wish he was in it more because I think it would be interesting because he's the same actor that was in Get Out. He's a really funny guy. It's kind of a shame he wasn't in there a little longer.
Yeah, Elray Howery?
Yeah. I think if I would have done it, instead of killing him off, I would have killed those two off, the boy and the girl, and kept him in the film. Because I think you're right. They are just, they're just completely pointless.
Yeah, there's some cool lines in this. Also, I kind of mentioned before we started recording, I'm not a huge fan of the title because it's basically calling Terminator dog leads, to be honest. It's basically the same thing.
It is. It absolutely is. Well, when I heard the title, I thought like, I didn't really know what to think. I didn't know what it was referring to. I was like, does it make you feel like you're a bird trapped in a box? Is this world a bird? Or, when you're blindfolded, is that like you're the bird and you're in the box? Or is the creature like a bird? Is it like so? No, it's literally she carries a box of birds that basically alert her to the presence of the creature. They're like an alarm, a walking alarm. Like, okay, the creature's near. But yeah, I think you're right. It's like it's kind of strange thing to call the movie. Just the early warning alarm for the monster rather than the monster itself.
No, fuck the horse. Wow, such venom.
Yeah,
that was quite a good one to start off with. As we said, they drive over someone's head, and Tom says, "It's just a speed bump." It's just a speed bump.
That was hilarious.
Yep. You definitely know you've run over someone's head.
Yeah. I think it was funny when she was like berating John Malkovich for being an asshole, and he is a huge asshole. Do you remember when
he is brilliant?
Yeah, when the big guy died, and they come back, and they like, was his name Chris or something? And they're like, "Where's Chris?" And he's like,
"Charlie." Yeah,
Charlie. That was it. He goes like, "That's one less
book I need to read," or something.
Yeah, that was it. One less book I need to read. You're like, you son of a bitch.
But I mean, if you want to cast an asshole, you go to John Malkovich.
Yeah, you go to John Malkovich.
I'm like, he's just an amazing asshole.
Yeah. And I love that quote where she's because he knows he's a dick. My first wife couldn't stand me. Sheila. Second wife said she no longer fears hell because it couldn't be much worse than being with me.
Yeah.
And then I like where he says like there are two. She's like, I know people like you. You're just like my father. He was like a handsome man. He's like, no, an asshole. He's like, as far as I'm concerned, there are two kinds of people in this world: assholes and the dead. And I like that. I thought that was kind of cool. Like, I'm a jerk because I survive.
Oh yeah, and then Mallory says, "Here's an argument: we're not assholes."
Yeah.
When John Malkovich is drunk in the supermarket, he says, "I would like to take this opportunity to make a toast to all of us, because all of us collectively are making the end of the world great again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely Donald Trump vibes getting there. You're like...
Yeah. Oh, that was hilarious.
No, that was brilliant.
My wife said that to call me a creep would be an affront to creeps everywhere.
Yeah, that was a good one. I forgot that one. Yeah.
New guy, you had a great visit. We really loved meeting you. Now fuck off.
Yeah,
but my favorite line from John Malkovich literally made me laugh out loud. When Olympia lets Tom Holland into the house and everyone panics and John Malkovich says, "You let a stranger in the house? Are you a simpleton?" It's very dark, but I found that hilarious.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
What's your favorite line then?
Yeah, I think any of the ones we've just said from John Malkovich are pretty funny. But, I do like, just because of the resonance of, there are two kinds of people in this world, assholes and dead people. And I kind of like that. It's like brutally honest.
You've always got to have a character like that in this sort of film. And like, you can't have a better actor than John Malkovich in that role.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So screenplay score for me, as I've said, this is a great idea, and it's just such a shame that they just chop it up in this stupid timeline hopping, and it's just tonally it's way too serious. But I love the idea, and it's just such a shame that they've poorly executed this really great idea in terms of the whole structure of the film.
I think there are definitely, as we were talking about, good parts. There are good scenes, there are good bits of dialogue, there are good effects and good acting. But I think you're right. The structure, they've done things that kind of upset the flow of the movie. It's just a few tweaks, and they could have improved it a lot more.
The final act just falls really quite flat, unfortunately. So I'll go like a 7.6, I think. How about you, sir?
Yeah, I'll go just 7.1. Actually, because I'm kind of torn. So I was even thinking lower than that. Right. Maybe a 6.9. Yeah, I'll go 6.9 actually.
Mine feels very high now.
Yeah.
I think my score is 7.6 because the idea is amazing.
The idea is brilliant.
It's just structurally, it's just not amazing. So acting then, when like Mallory enters John Malkovich's house, who plays Douglas, Sandra Bullock looks very scared of him when he says, "She went to help you, now she's gone," and he's incredibly still while he's saying it. But because it's John Malkovich, he's so fucking scary. And if I was Sandra Bullock, I would be like, "Nope, next house, please. I'm going next door."
Yeah.
So yeah, John Malkovich, amazing. But I think one of my favorite performances is from Tom Hollander, though, who plays Gary, who turns up halfway through. He is so creepy as fuck in this movie.
Yeah, I think it's amazing because he makes the switch almost seamlessly, where he's so innocent, he's so friendly, he's basically resigned to himself. He just seems like a normal guy who's seen some horrible stuff, and he's trying to survive this, and you can feel it. And then he just flicks it like a switch, and he is a fucking lunatic. Like, he is just, prancing about. He loves this. He wants everybody to see this. And I like how, giddy he is, that he wants people to see this amazing thing. It's like a kid who has, the best toy. He's like, "You gotta see this!" And I just, I love that energy.
Doesn't make me jealous, but sure, what he's saying.
Yeah.
You're clearly insane.
Yeah, and those drawings look horrible. Horrible. I don't want to see that stuff. Jesus.
But just after he forces open the eyes of the old woman and she stabs herself with the scissors, he says to Mallory, "Hey, Mallory, give me the children. Give me the kids."
Yeah.
He's like a whiny teenager, basically Robin.
Yeah.
But when John Malkovich turns up with the shotgun, he's got his eyes closed because Tom Hollander has opened the blinds and he's hopping around trying to get out of the way of the gun. And it's like the monster is moving for him, and it's like he's not consciously moving his body, only knowing what he's saying, but obviously he's gone insane. So
yeah, seems unhuman, yeah.
So it's just really interesting storytelling with his acting of just what is he actually in control with? in control of here, in terms of his body and mind. So that scene stood out.
I also thought it was interesting, like when he does have when John Malkovich shoots him in the arm, and he rushes him and then stabs him with the pair of scissors.
Yeah.
And he's genuinely looks from being quite happy and giddy to kind of being quite sad and you think, because he had to stab this guy, but no, he's like, I'm so sorry you couldn't get to see, and just...
Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus Christ, that's messed up. I was like, that so fits, I thought that was done really well.
So I think my favourite performance will still go with John Malkovich, because why wouldn't you pick John Malkovich? Because he's fucking awesome.
I would like to be John Malkovich. I wonder if there's a film with that exact plot. I would so watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be amazing to see, actually, if there is a film like that. But yeah, Tom Holland is literally right behind him, I would say.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I would put still... I think Sandra Bullock does a really good job. I would say she kind of stands out, I think, a lot towards the end. But I think she does a good job. But yeah, I think I would probably give to John Malkovich just because, he's John Malkovich. He has a lot of fun with it.
So acting score for me, I think I'll go like an 8.3.
Yeah, I think the acting is pretty top notch. I would actually say, because we've talked about the directing and we've talked about the writing and the acting. I think the directing's on point, and I think the acting's on point. It really is the script that has problems. But yeah, no, I think the acting's solid. Yeah, man. I'll give it an 8.6, I think.
Interesting scores. Let's add them up for Bird Box. Bird Box gets a solid 48. So Gravity wins this week against Bird Box for Sandra Bullock films.
Get your rude box. Why are you so nasty? Rude box. Do the rude box. Why are you so nasty? You got to listen to that song. It is god awful.
All right. Okay. Next episode, as Morbius is out, and of course that is the legendary...
You sound like the Count from the... God, what are they? Sesame Street.
No, obviously that failed, but I was trying to do an Italian accent because it's a Jared Leto movie, because he's ridiculous in whatever the fuck that film is called.
House of Gucci, isn't it? Yeah.
House of Gucci.
No, man, you just sound like the Count from Sesame Street. One Jared Leto. Ha, 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 ha. Two Jared Leto. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah. Oh god, that would be hilarious if Jared Leto plays that character. Anyway, yeah. Next episode we are doing vampire films, and we have guests.
The Count's a vampire.
Yes, from the World of Horror podcast. So that's going to be very exciting. A must listen, I think. They've already picked their film for that one, so they're very keen to come on. So definitely listen to that one. Boaz, you have been amazing. See you next time. Bye-bye.
You have too been amazing.
Bye.
Bye.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off.